Now we understood about the global enterprises. Now let us see what is this term joint venture. See, you would have seen a lot of joint ventures happening nowadays. What is a joint venture? This is nothing but basically when two companies together come and form a new company. What is the reason they would be doing so? The reason is, there would be a variety of reasons. The first and foremost reason is obviously to increase their business profits. How? Let us understand. First, let us see what is a joint venture. See, any business organization, if it desires, it can join hands with another organization. So just as I said, when two companies come together, they get into an agreement and they would form a new company. So this is always done for the reason of mutual benefits. Okay. So joint venture comes into existence because two companies decide to use the resources and use the technologies which they have, and then they will benefit each other because of this venture in a mutual basis. Okay. Examples, Maruti Suzuki, you would have, as I was explaining you in the earlier videos. Now see, Suzuki had the technology, they had innovation, they were looking out for different markets to expand their business. Now what Maruti had, Maruti already had a plant here in India. They were producing cars, but then they wanted to produce world class cars. So they required the technology, and because of that, Maruti and Suzuki came together and opened a joint venture. What about Bharti Airtel? Now this is one of the best example when it comes to joint venture. Bharti and Airtel came together in 2005. Now Bharti had share in the landline. You would have seen those Beetle phones. So those were prepared by Bharti. Airtel had 15 million users. Okay. So because Bharti had spread across the network and Airtel also had a hold of subscribers which were in tune to 15 million. So they collaborated together so that they could expand their business and bring in more profits to the business. Okay. Now remember, when it comes to joint venture, there is no compulsion on the size of the business. So a very small company, a very small private company can enter into a joint venture with a global MNC. So any two companies can decide to form a joint venture. So businesses of any size can actually come and together and use the joint venture. They can strengthen their long-term collaboration, and also on a short-term project they can form the joint ventures and mutually benefit each other. Okay. Now the question comes, why there should be a JV? What is the reason I would go for a joint venture? Okay. Now you would, if you have been hearing my examples, you would have got an idea as to why we need a joint venture. Let's quickly understand business expansion. See, if I want to enter into any country, okay, and I have certain, like Maruti Suzuki, Suzuki had the technology. So if I have certain important things like the technology or innovative products, okay, and the host country already has the customer base, the requisite customer base, so I can expand my business by entering into a joint venture with them. The next is development of new products. Sometimes what happens, you have the resources, that is, your company has the resources, your company has the technology, okay, but then the company doesn't have any customer base. Okay, so they can develop the new products. When two companies come together, what happens is there is synergies of resources. So they would be having some resources, they would have done some kind of R&D, and these would be the people, the other company would be the people who would be having that customer base on which you can do the testing. So here you can develop the new products. Now again, I'll take the Maruti Suzuki example. See, Suzuki was working in Japan, right? Now comparatively, the population of India is quite huge when I compare it to Japan. So what happened there was, at some point of time the exhaustion comes for a company. They cannot keep on introduce new products in the market. But the Indian market, the Indian car market was very huge. So here new products could be developed and introduced in the market. So when a joint venture happens, it opens a place where new products can be developed. Then you can move into new markets. See, if you are doing a joint venture with any other company who is situated in a country other than your country, then you can enter into those markets too, because you have entered into a joint venture. Now let's understand the features here. See, it is a temporary business activity. Sometimes what happens, you get a project, okay, your company has a project. Now that project has to be implemented, but it requires certain kind of expertise. Now this expertise is available with some different company, so both of you have something missing for the project which has to be done. So what you can do is, you can come set up a joint venture, finish the project, and then the joint venture can be closed off. Okay, so if there is a temporary business activity, it can be fulfilled, it can be completed using joint venture. Now the profit and losses can be shared on agreed basis. Generally the company which has an upper hand will be having a higher say in the profits. Okay, now if there is no agreement between them on profits, if the agreements are silent, which rarely happens, then they have to be shared on equal basis. The agreement will terminate after completing a venture. So as I told you, if they take up a project together, once the project is completed, the agreement gets terminated and the joint venture gets closed. Okay, the next is, the assets and liabilities will be liquidated. See, if I have XYZ project to be completed, so A and B, these were two companies who came together, they formed AB as a joint venture. So once that XYZ project gets completed, they will dissolve the joint venture because it was formed as a company. So these assets and liabilities would be settled, and then the joint venture, whatever the remaining profits are there, they would be shared between the partners. Okay. Now let us see what are the merits. See, there is an increased resources and capacity. You take any example I have been telling you, Maruti Suzuki or Bharti Airtel, whenever such kind of joint venture happens, the resources of the company increases, because two big companies or maybe one big company and one small companies are coming together, so the resources are getting merged out here. So there would be increased resources. Obviously the capacity will increase because the plant size is increasing. Okay, now if Maruti comes in with a car, would have entered into an agreement with, let's say, another car making company, so they would have used the plant of that other car making company also. So that means the capacity of the plant increases. Now see, they give access to new markets and distribution network. As I told you, if you are operating in company, if you are a company A operating in Brazil, and now there is company B operating in India, so when they get into joint venture, you will access, being an Indian company, you will have access in the Brazilian market, and the Brazilian company will have access to the Indian markets. Similarly, you have the access to the distribution network. To understand this, take an example. If your company is a cement company, okay, now they have a network in south, so they are accessible in south. They want to expand in the eastern area. So what they can do is, they can enter into a joint venture with a cement company in the eastern area. So now they will have access to the eastern locations also, and together they can start exploring the central and the northern region of the country also. Access to technology. See, in case of Maruti Suzuki, the technology which was there with Suzuki, it became accessible to Maruti. Okay. Similarly, in Bharti Airtel, if there is a particular technology which was there with the Airtel, Bharti was able to use that particular technology. So you get access to the technology of your joint venture partner. Low cost of production, because the scale increases, the plant capacity increases, so there would be economies of scale when it comes to production. Established brand. Now this is very important. See, if Suzuki would have entered into the Indian markets on its own, it would have taken some time to establish itself. But when it did a joint venture with Maruti, what happened was, Maruti was a well-known brand. Okay, so they easily got established as a brand, because Maruti Suzuki became a company as such. So what happens is, when you are going to a country, you have two ways to enter. Either you open your own business out there, or otherwise you can enter into a joint venture with a company who already has an established brand, and then utilize that for your benefit. Innovation. See, when two companies come together, they have their resources together, and when resources increases, the capacity to make innovations in the product also increases. Why? Because there is a merger of the skills. The joint venture helps bringing in people, that is the employees of both the companies together. The resources, when I am talking about, these would include your human resources, financial resources, right? So when all these things combine together, innovation is bound to happen in the products. Okay, now let's see how the joint venture is opened in India. Okay, say when it comes to joint venture in India, approval is required, provided if the joint venture is a foreign partner or NRI, then you have to see. If the joint venture is coming through automatic route, what would happen? I'll require an approval of RBI. If it is not under the automatic rule, then the case gets referred to Foreign Investment Proportion Board, which is a FIPB. So you have to see whether an NRI or an outside company is involved or not. If yes, then the joint venture needs to get approval of RBI if it is through automatic route. If not, then you have to go to FIPB. Now see, automatic route is a route wherein the FDI has already been permitted by Government of India. So if that is the case, you don't have to go to FIB. Now let's move to the next point, as in how the formation of JV happens. See, there are three ways in which the JV can be formed. The first is you open a new joint venture company. That is, suppose company A and company B are the two companies who want to open a joint venture, or they want to do a joint venture. They will open a third company, which is company AB, and then they will buy shares in that company. The other one is transfer of business to the new company. So what they would do is, they will completely open a new company, let's say company AB, and then they will transfer a portion of their business to that particular company. Lastly, they would be collaborating with the existing company with other party. That is, the company is already existing, but then the collaboration of that company will be done with the third party. So these are the ways in which joint venture can be formed in India. This brings us to the end of this video.